Anti-Social Hour is show recording live from beautiful Vancouver, Washington. The cute Vancouver, not the gorgeous Vancouver. Starring your friend Aunty Sochelle and her guest today, which is Mr. Stephen Cooper, who is from CooperTalk. And he is awesome, and you will love him, or I will kick your asses individually. I promise you. Hi, Steve. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited. I like being the guest. You host. I host so much. I host two other shows too, and you're always the host, and you never get to be the guest. And I'm like,
This
all
is
right. You
exactly
hit me
why
up
I
on
hunted you
LinkedIn.
down. I hunted you down because I saw you had some really cool podcasts with musicians that I really like too, by the way. They're wicked awesome. I just listened to Paul Young one, and now I've got
Oh, did
every
you like
time.
it?
It
Did you like it?
was really good. He was, you good at pulling people into their conversation, which is lovely. It gives me stuff to learn from. I need to learn. I've only been in the business 40 years, so I got stuff to pick up. Anybody who says they know everything, I want to smack in the head because they know nothing. So,
I've done over Cooper Talk. I've done over 1,030 episodes published. I've done even more than that when I started out, and I still learn every day. You never. That's what makes it fun. The day you stop learning,
you're
you just
dead,
you lose that
right?
edge. Yeah, it's just you lose this edge. That's what you do it. I mean, I want to learn when I do an interview. I want it to be interesting because if it's boring, I don't want to. And who wants to do something boring? You know what I
Right?
mean? So I just, I've only had one guest who was very boring. I'll never really say who that was, but
Not out
they,
loud.
they were very nice, but they were just boring. And it's when I recorded in a studio in Burbank, California, and I had to do an hour. It was for an internet radio station, and this person very nice, but they started vaping in the
Oh,
studio, and I'm like, what?
oh,
At least
oh.
ask. And I don't delve into personal stuff. Like I'm not going to sit there. Like I had Jack Russell on from Great White.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
not going to bless his soul. I'm not going to ask him about the fire because that's. But out of
Yeah.
nowhere, he
And
tells,
everybody in Rhode Island is still going, please don't ask.
yeah,
Please don't ask.
I didn't want to because that doesn't concern me. But then out of nowhere, he tells me this story how he shot a maid, and I was just intrigued, and I was like, "What?" And he told this whole story. But that's what I like. But with this person, they had some crazy past. I'm not going to get into all that, but
Let
at
them pick
least
it
give
out.
me an idea of something. That's why you're on. And
Right.
this is your life. So it's just funny. But I learn every day. I learned that day. Just man, I was looking at the watch. I'm like, because it was on the internet. I had an hour. It had to be an hour show, and I'm like 25 minutes in. I'm going, oh man,
Uh-oh.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I pulled it out, and then they're like, well, I'd love to come back on. I'm like, So
Really? You really would?
they were nice. That's the thing. They were nice, but they didn't. They were on for a certain reason,
Right.
and they didn't really want to delve into that much. And I wasn't going to get TMZ stuff. I don't believe in that, but at least give me some good stories. That's all I say. Like years ago, I think Richard Harris was on David Letterman,
Uh-huh.
and he told
Richard
three
Harris, the
amazing.
British Richard Harris, the Richard
Yes,
Harris.
yeah, the actor, Rich,
Okay.
the
Well,
British.
there's two of them. I didn't know. Okay.
Well, and he told these three great stories, and Letterman came back. He goes, "That's all you need. Three stories, and you'll be a great guest." And
Uh,
it's true. If you can get three stories, it's a great guest.
and up until the day he died, he kept saying, I gotta do Harry Potter. No.
Yes.
This is so cool. Well, I have a lot to learn from you because you are the expert in talking. Because I don't know how to do that talking stuff. I'm really bad at small talk. Like I could get somebody to tell me like why they got a kidney taken out and donated to their dog or whatever. But because I got one of those faces where everybody walks up to me at the bus stop and goes, you look like my daughter. My daughter used to tell me, blah, 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 blah.
Well, I get it. And this is funny. I'm legally blind to one eye. I was born with a congenital cataract. And as I've gotten older, I've had a lazy eye. It leans in. And I get it where like people who have another affliction come off to me. Like I was at ShopRite, which is like our version of Ralph's.
Uh-huh.
And and I have no peripheral vision here. So I almost hit this guy, like bumped into him. And I go, I'm so sorry. I'm blind on this eye. And then he starts telling me this whole story. He can't see. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get some pork chops. All right. I don't want to hear your whole story, but I can't be rude,
Right.
because, you know, if they want to if I always say if people come up and want to talk to you,
Right.
it's better than people just walking by and not wanting to talk to you. And I think it's just something, but sometimes I mean, you're probably the same way. You don't want to have these conversations, but then you feel bad. Like you walk
They
away
might
like,
be
was I a
lonely.
jerk?
They might have had
Right.
a bad day. There might be a mugger who wants to not mug that day.
Exactly. They don't want to beat me with a stick that day.
That's right. I've had people come up to me when my dogs are with me because I have two little cutie pie doggies. One of them's a little rat terrier, and the other one's a little Malty poop. And whenever I have the dogs with me, people come, my dog looked just like I had a dog named Ernie who just looked like your dog. It's so cunning, so smart, it's so wicked. And I would just look at the dog and go, yes, you may pet my dog. Please, by all means, pet my dog. And they'd cry on my dog and tell me their stories. And I just think everybody, especially the whole reason for the show, I mean, when I put it together was people don't know who to talk to anymore or how. So
And and you're right. And it's funny is I've worked with some newer podcasters, and I've coached some podcasters, and and I have a business podcast too, where I moderate a roundtables called the Coop Tank. And for that, people will ask me, "Oh, well, can you give me the questions?" And I'm like, "No," because I'll be honest, in my show, Cooper Talk, I don't write any questions down. But my guests coming on, I'm fans of them. I like Paul Young's work. I just had what's his name? I can't Martin Ware, who's in a Human League, and
oh
then
yeah.
Heaven 17. He was just on, and I like their work.
I'll
And
be
so
singing your head now.
yeah, I don't want to write questions down because I told people that when you have a like, I mean, do your research. Always do your research. You have to know your guests, but don't ask. I always you don't write things down because then it's you're going off that sheet. Or if the guest, more not in the entertainment one, not in Cooper Talk, but in the Coop Tank, if someone asks, can I get the questions? I'm like, no. I say, because first of all, entertainers can just know how to talk. I mean, I always say we're 50% narcissistic and 50% insecure. Like we want the adulation, but when we get it, we don't think we deserve it.
Secret you weren't
But
supposed to tell.
we know how to talk. But these people the business one, I'm like, no, because then you're gonna think in your head the whole time what your answer is, and then you're gonna answer it, and you're not gonna get it right because you're not a trained actor who knows lines or stuff like that. That's not what you do. And so it's just a matter for me, like as you said, just talking. And that's the thing. People don't know how to talk. I don't know if it's because of social media. Like I see, people just, I mean, they blow their horns so much. They're telling me what my takeaway should be. And I'm like, you don't even know me.
Right,
It's like,
right,
and then what I've learned. I don't care what you've learned. Here's what I've learned. I've done mind erasure shots with Jonathan Teller Thomas. Have you? No. So
right.
don't tell
Oh,
me what you've learned.
right.
So it's funny, but you're right. The art of conversation has left us, and I think it's because I mean, I'm 60, and
Me
when I
too.
was okay, so when I
1964.
was, yeah, I mean, I would sit there, you would go out if you wanted to meet someone after I'd get off stage at the comedy show, be out at the club, you want to get some girls, and you talk to them. You had to talk, but now it's the dumbing down. Where I mean, I thank God I haven't been on ever. I've never been on a dating app, but it's like swipe left, swipe, and
I
it's
met
like,
my husband, the third, the
well,
fourth,
that's good though. But
fourth
that's good.
time.
Like I mean, but it's but it's just I think
I
people
had
have
that
lost.
practice.
Yeah, but no, they've lost the art. They've lost the art of conversation, and it's sad because I mean, I met so many friends in LA when I was at a bar that played Philadelphia Eagles games, and I would just start a conversation with them. And then we became friends because they had that common knowledge. Now, given sometimes you start talking to the guy who's just a wacko, and you're like, oh God, now he's going to sit next to me, and every time I come in here, hey, there's an Eagles fan. But you still learn, and I don't think people have that art of conversation anymore.
And then when COVID hit, it seems like everybody forgot everything. It's like,
However, I'm going to say one thing. During COVID, I ran a big business networking group. I get like 50 or 60 people on, and we would do breakout rooms. So people actually got to know each other.
oh,
And I
that
think it was because we had to still do business, and so I think that was one upside of it. But you're right, though. COVID, people weren't out. You're not meeting that person. I mean, I had been married for 6 months, then COVID happened, and I'm
oh
like,
wow. So you're still a baby to the marriage thing. Good.
oh yeah, this is my second one. Yeah, but I just like I can't even get in an argument with my wife and go and have a drink because all the bars are closed. So it was a thing where
I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Huh.
exactly, yeah, walking down, walking to the kitchen, grab the orange juice, drink out of the container, my
Oh yeah.
newsstand boxes hanging down. And no, it was just you're right though. COVID also did hurt it, but or people did really get Zoom. Like people never used Zoom before, and now look, you're on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. We're talking. I talked to Paul Young was in London, and I'm like, wow, and it's like you're talking right to them, and so that's what's cool about it.
I have a lot of guests who are video game actors, and a lot of them are in the United Kingdom, and some are in Japan, and the different time zones. Whatever I wake up is fine because I got animals. They wake me up at crack of dawn. So, but they call me, and it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm having a cup of tea. What time is it there? Oh, it's time for tea here too. Yeah, I'm gonna have
Well,
tea.
I had Andrew Farris from In Excess on, and
You have good musicians, by the way. I've been going through your
uh,
list. You got some
I
seriously good musician
I'm
people.
I'm a huge '80s fan, and I've been,
Uh,
I figured I've had over 60 members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and as a music fan, it's just amazing. But Andrew Farris, it was like I was calling him at night, and it was morning in Australia. Like it was like that big time difference. It was so weird
yeah,
because you're like,
it's like you're in a time travel.
yeah, it's like this guy's just like getting up and you know getting his coffee or getting his lunch. I just finished dinner, and we're talking, and so yeah, the music guest. I got lucky. I when I started my show, I was doing it out of a studio in LA,
Uh,
and I was getting a lot of comics because I have a background in stand-up comedy, and I was getting different guys. And I remember my first big act was, well, I had got Kato Kalin. Okay, I ran into him at Flappers Comedy Club, and then I said, you know what? Because I was interviewing comics and it was good, but I was like, and I'm I knew Paul Tompkins. We worked together in Philadelphia a lot. Blaine Capash. They were all like guys we worked out of the clubs in Philly.
nice.
And then
So you
I
David
got, I
Renner.
remember you'll appreciate this
Okay.
because we're the same age. I got Robbie Benson. And
Oh, he's
there was
so
a time,
cute with the big
yeah,
eyes. Oh, he was so
he
cute.
was like, and people, I tell people he was like the biggest thing, like when 101 and I think Ode to Billie Jean or
I was gonna
Bobby
say, did you
Joe
see
or
that skating movie?
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Ice
the
Castles.
Ice
And
Castle. That's it.
I got him, and I was like, oh my god! So and then I started just reaching out to character actors on Twitter and Facebook, and this was 13 years ago. There wasn't a ton of podcasts, so these guys were like, oh yeah. So they and I started getting friends with Patrick Fabian from Better Call Saul and Spencer Garrett, and I had all these actors, and I was like, I wanted to get some musicians, and I was at a bar called Wakano in Burbank, and there's two dudes with long hair. There's like five Wakanos in the LA area.
I was gonna say, I'm trying to remember. Okay, I'm trying to remember the Burbank one. All right.
Yeah, so it's right there because I lived in Burbank. I could walk up there.
I was in
And I
South
was
Pass. Totally get it.
okay.
Okay.
You see, yeah. So I was buzzing. I'm not gonna lie, I was buzzing. And I saw these two guys with long hair, and I said, "Hey, are you musicians?" And the guy said, "Yeah." Well, it turns out one was a guy named Troy Patrick Farrell who was playing the White Lion, and we became friends. The other
Wow.
was John Corabi, who ended up going to sing with Motley Crue, and
Wow.
so Troy came on my show. Those were my first musicians, and through Troy, I got Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. Troy was drumming with him. And
Nice.
so it's just how it would work. And then I was at Lucky Larry, who drums for the Circle Jerks. He was on my show. He was at a party. I met Jason Aldean's drummer, Rich Redmond, who's the nicest guy. He's from Connecticut, not country. Well, then Rich, me and him hit it off. He would stay with me and my wife when he was in town.
Aw.
Through Rich, I got the drummer from Night Ranger, Liberty DeVito from Billy Joel, Carmine Apiece,
Nice.
Kenny
Yeah,
Aronoff.
it's like a crossword puzzle. Everybody's
Yeah, I was just getting all these musicians. So I was like, this is cool. And then the studio closed. So I had to do it via phone or whatever. But it was great because then, like, a band called the Hooters that are from Philly that I loved. I grew up listening to them. I got David, the drummer, on it, Eric, and then I was just getting all these musicians. And then as I got more and more, I got played on a few internet radio stations. So I was getting good numbers. But then as I got more and more musicians, I got to know the PR people and like
that
Ray
helps.
Rodan and Ray Raby and there's a bunch of them that just and you get to know them and they know you're not full of it. Like
Right.
and I send a query letter with the people that have been on my show and it is I'll be honest it is like a who's who I've had I mean
And it helps when you have somebody who has been on your show and they care about you and they say, you, my friend, you should do the show, even though it hasn't aired yet, which happened to me a couple times already. Could you do this show? Because I think you will like it. I was like, this is
well,
good.
I think most people will do shows. It's funny though. It's just it's that's why you always have to be nice. Like
Yeah.
I had Glenn Matlock from the Sex Pistols,
Oh,
and he was on, and he was so cool, and he was just funny. He was cracking me up, and we were going to start, but he had to get his cleaning lady was there, so he sits there. But I knew he played in a band in L.A. with Clem Burke from Blondie. So
Oh, that's so cool.
I sent Glenn an email. I said, hey man, thanks for coming on the show. I said, listen, hey, can you do me a favor and see if Clem wants to do it? Because yeah, I'll find out. And then I had Clem on. So it's like that. All these musicians, if you're nice and if you do a good interview, if you're not,
Not
as I say,
sticking around with their
just
personal life. You're not going into stories they don't care about. You're not talking about their sex life because that's boring as hell anyway, most of the
yeah,
time.
and I actually I'm fans of their work and I know their work. I mean, I told the Paul Young story about the haircut, that was a big thing. And when I had Lamal from Kasha Gugu, I
Wow.
told a story about two shy to shy dancing, was it slower than fast, and you might meet the girl you like. And then he told me this whole story. And then the guy from OMD, Andy McCluskey, If You Leave came out when I was leaving college, and he told this whole story about how that wasn't the original song. So I think if
Oh,
you just show a genuine interest in these
yeah.
people and you talk to them, because I think also, and you performed, and I think I bring up comedy now more because a lot of musicians are frustrated. They wish they could have done comedy, just like I wish I could do
Everybody I
music.
know who's a musician is a comedian, and I've been in
Yeah,
bands, and you've been.
yeah.
I'm sure you've been in bands too, right?
No,
No,
no, I suck at
in
every
your
instrument.
brain,
I'm
in your
awful.
brain, you've been in it.
Oh yeah, I was actually this is my first time ever on stage.
uh,
Was well, the first time I ever was supposed to be on stage was play Flight of the Bumblebees on the trombone in sixth grade, but I had mono and I missed it. And I forgot all about the story until I ran into my friend Liz Shipman, who was supposed to play like violin as I played saxophone. So she had to go solo. And I forgot about that. But
oh,
but the time I really got crowd reaction, I was in college. I went to a small school called Stockton State College. Now it's Stockton University. It's in Pomona, New Jersey.
uh,
And they had this. I hung out with the big man on campus, a senior, because I was a freshman, and I made him laugh. I just crack him and his buddies up. So they had a contest called Mr. Stockton. It was like a Miss America thing, like formal attire. And this, well, I did it as a joke. I mean, I'm not a bodybuilder by any means. I wore like bright orange shorts and oiled my body up. And I wore this stupid suit. But as for my um, talent, I did a Rick Springfield air guitar.
nice.
And I threw picks into the audience with my name on it. My buddy gave me his guitar, and the place went. I ended up on the news. I took second, which was fine. I did it
You
as a
got
joke.
robbed.
It gave me. I did get robbed. It gave me the that thing of stage, but that's the closest I've been to being a musician. And it's like the adulation a musician gets is so much more than what a comedian gets. I mean, you can slay a room. I mean, they're laughing, but you have to prove yourself every joke.
Every
Musician, I mean,
single time.
music you can go on and you can just play and they just go crazy. I mean, you can
And if
you
you
can
forget the words, they sing them for you.
yeah, exactly. You're right, and that's what happens now, especially at these '80s shows.
Yeah.
They sing them back to you. So
I go to Pearl Jam shows a lot, and it's like that. Eddie just hands out the microphone. He's like, "Oh, okay, you guys do." It's really good. Yeah, I am also. I got a degree in jazz vocals. Go figure. And I did stand up when I was 16 with Dennis Leary, who's this guy out of Boston. You might have heard of. I don't
I
know.
opened for him in Philly.
Yeah, he used to do the East Coast ride with. Anyway, that's a long story for another time. But he bet me I'll give you $1 for every minute you do make people laugh. And if you're good, yeah, we'll put you on stage sometime. All right, we'll see. I don't know, Dennis. I don't know. So $10 later, he's telling me to shut up and get off stage because he's broke and he needs money for gas. So
That's
I didn't bomb the first time. I waited till the second
me
time.
too.
Yeah.
First time I did so great, and it was that young, that I was 24, I think, and it
Wow.
was just that young attitude you have, like, oh, this shit's easy.
Yeah.
Like I can do this. I'm gonna be headlining
I
next
got
week.
it.
Little do you know how much work these guys do. So the next time I come back, it was the Comedy Factory outlet in Philadelphia. It's no longer around.
Uh-huh.
Great club. And I went up and I died to death. And I walked off with like my tail between my legs. And I didn't come back for a month. I didn't go back. I was so devastated. But that's the thing. It's not, it
But you gotta
doesn't
learn how
always.
to fix it. You gotta learn how to listen
And
because
you're not going to be after your second time. I mean, no one's, it's like anything. I mean, throw a baseball for the second time. You're not going to be throwing strikes.
yeah,
So
marriage second time. Not, no, maybe your case you did okay because you just started one and you I had to wait till four.
no, my second's good. My second's great. So I got no
You.
complaints there.
I'm a newlywed too. We just got married Friday the 13th back in December. So, so
Oh, we
yeah.
got married we got married in September 13th. It was a Friday the 13th, it'll be 6 years. And we got our DJ, I think, cheaper because of that. And we got this really cool venue that was usually booked up because I don't think anyone would get married on Friday the 13th. But my wife's Italian, and she said, I mean, she's not from Italy. She's Italian.
She's East Coast Italian like me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Friday the 13th is good luck in Italian or something like
That's
that.
right.
So it's been good. Good luck so far. So
That's awesome. That's what we did. That's exactly why we did t-shirts. We had a lady that's a Wiccan.
Okay.
just
See, we had ours was okay size. My wife had never been married. She wanted the dress.
Do it right.
And I got lucky because my brother's a jewelry designer. And what I
Oh,
paid for the ring and what it got appraised for, big difference.
oh,
So
it's so nice.
I say to my wife, you know how much you're wearing on your hand? But she's not. I mean, I got it. I got it retail. I didn't get it retail, man. I got it.
Look, it's
Discount.
a car.
Even my brother was surprised when he said, "What? I should have charged you more. Got a price for that." I go, but he made me go into Manhattan carrying cash. I don't know if he thought my check would bounce.
No.
So I had a wad of money in my pocket. I was sitting there and I took the train in, and I was just thinking, I got the ring, so I get back on. And my brother was great. He gave the empty ring box and put that in my pocket here. But then they put the ring wrapped up in something. They put it in my inside
Smart
pocket of my jacket. But I was just thinking, just my luck. It'll be that one time, like in a movie, the train gets hijacked, and all of a sudden I'm telling my now my girlfriend, I swear to God, we're getting engaged, but they stole the ring. She's like, they didn't shut up. They didn't, that doesn't happen. But I got back almost it. You worry when you have a lot of cash on you, man. You're like, and then you're worried. What if you drop it? What if something happens?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
And now they have YouTube videos with proof that you screwed up. So
right. Exactly.
It's like, what did you do? Now everybody in the world knows. Yeah, we were lucky. So I want to hear more about your stand-up stuff. What type of stand-up? When we started, because we're from the same generation, so it was a whole different animal than the kids that are out now. They do the TikTok edits and all that.
Yeah, I host this monthly show at this really, really cool venue. And it's just me, and I bring in some of the top Philly, South Jersey headliners. Nice. Because I've gotten to know them and they know me, and the venue's really cool. And I already, I did a show last week, and I usually don't drive more than 30 minutes, but it was a benefit, and I paid good. And I was like, all right, I got a call out of blue. There's a guy who's a very big comic runner I've known forever. And I said, hey, if you ever need an act, he's like, I didn't think you were doing it anymore. Well, I have a cancellation on Saturday. I said, sure. And I can't say what my act, I do all different things. I do some stupid impressions. I do jokes. I don't have any pressure anymore. Before I used to do more like jokes, but I don't care anymore. And now I always do well because I think because I don't do it a lot. I mean, if I did it every night, I would suck some nights. It happens. but I mean, and then I did a storytelling show, and I've done them before, and I just go up and have fun. And then I always forget. I constantly write, and on Facebook I write stupid jokes all the time, but I never do them on stage. And but I write stuff, and I tend to be a little bit off color at times. I mean, I do some because I'm involved in the business community. I've done some networking events where one lady who I know very nice, she's like, you're very funny, but you're very off color. And I'm like, well, I don't care. I don't care. I get paid. And I'm like, were you laughing? Yeah, well, who cares? Like, well, it's a business event. They're like, well, it's a business event. I said, there's pizza and it's in a brewery. Okay, don't give me that. People they're coming to laugh. And it's like, and the thing is also is the crowd I attract to my shows is 40 and up. Right. So they're not getting offended. They're not, and they know, like, you're not going to, I mean, unless you're just awful and you're racist and you're making rape jokes, but why would you do that?
I get a lot of drag queens at my shows. They love me.
I thought at one point I was going to be like one of the most popular people for the drag queens, because many years ago, God, 15 years ago, I was co-starred in a movie that Alexis Arquette was in. And she was in the movie, bless her soul, and it was called Killer Drag Queens on Dope.
I've seen them.
It was Anthony and Tony. We were the two We were the two dumb criminals. Now, I don't know if I was Anthony or Tony, but the other guy is Mark Beltzman, who was
Oh,
Flock of Seagulls in The Wedding Singer and was in Billy Madison. It was a great Seinfeld episode where he played the chef with the same size suit as George. And we were in 20 minutes of it. And I got beat up by Alexa. I felt up a drag queen, and I thought it was going to be a big thing. And it's funny though, I saw that it was a Blockbuster video when it came out. And then one day I get a message from a guy I used to wait tables with at Planet Hollywood in Beverly Hills. And he said, "Oh my God, I got my husband a movie and you're in it." And I was like, "Oh my God, someone saw it." But it was just funny. It's so bad. And it's just like, it was
those are my
so cheap.
favorite kind of movies. Those
But
are
it was like, and it was when digital was coming out. So when they shot it, they would blow smoke across the screen. So it make it go green. And I remember my big line that everyone liked was I fell for the one drag queen. I didn't know, I just thought it was this woman. And I'm massaging her feet because we were tied up. And I'm trying to
natural.
be smooth. So I start feeling up her leg. And I give a look and and I go back to the guy and I go, "Oh my God, I don't exactly. I still remember, and this is how I delivered it. I don't know why such a good looking woman would go out and get herself a dick." And that was the line that it just, and
I
at
know
the
a lot of
movie,
women have gone out and got themselves a
yeah.
dick.
But it was just funny though. I always thought that I'd be like, man, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm gonna be the grand marshal of the White WeHo parade. Nothing, and no one ever saw it. And I'm like, I thought I could be like going to like on gay cruises. I could be, Anthony or Tony, whatever my name was. Nothing, nothing. But it was a fun experience.
That's awesome. I don't, it's so funny when you get this like following of people and you're like, where did they come from and why that group? What did I do? And
Yeah.
in my case, I had a radio show for 6,000 years in Los Angeles. On Premier, I'll just say Premier Networks. I won't give the station name. So we were kind of international. So everybody around the world got to hear us. So I got used to get these Korean girls that would run up to me, and I had no idea we were playing in Korea. No idea.
It's
And I
that's the
lived
way
in
it
Las
is.
Vegas 20 years later. I lived in Las Vegas after I did the show. And I had this flock of girls. Oh my God, Isa Katibi. Hi. There was adorable. I loved it.
Yeah, it's always cool. It's good stuff.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. And what made you decide to do podcasting then? From stand up to podcasting.
Well, I was just dabbling in stand up. I was actually I had ended up with a job of this. There was this restaurant, new hip chain called Granville, and I ended up being their corporate marketing manager
Ooh,
because
yeah.
I've been involved. I was an event planner for a brewery called Gordon Biersch,
Oh,
and
I love that place. I love that place.
I used to book the parties in there, do the marketing, and I met this guy Jerry Daly who had a radio. It was internet radio, 92.5 kyhy.com, and everyone said, "Oh, Coop would be great on a show." So I said, "Okay, I want to do like an '80s show." Because, well, we play unsigned bands. That was the whole thing, was indie music.
Some
I
Indian
said, "Okay,"
fabulous.
and then I said, "Okay," I said, "I want to do 30 minutes of talk," and then 30. He goes, "Okay, no problem," and and then like a few weeks later, I was getting comics I was working with. I remember my first guest ever was a girl named Amy Dresner, who later wrote a book called My Fair Junkie.
I was gonna say
Um,
I know that name. I
yeah,
should.
she did it because I was booking a show at Flappers called Cooper's Angels, where I would host 7 female comics, and I would host them. And so I was doing a few of
Blackbird
these shows.
Burbank is a great club.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I used to go there. I actually lived in Brooklyn. I'd walk over there, but I was doing it, and then the guy called me and he's like, "Man, you're getting like a ton of listeners." He goes, "Just you can just do all talk if you want." So I started doing all talk, and so I just did that, and I just was reaching out to people, and I was getting people because, as I said, there wasn't a lot of podcasts that I was getting. Phil Rosenthal came on, Terry Nunn from Berlin. I had Wendy Liebman come on, who I've always loved. She did
Wendy's
a
a friend of mine. We're gonna have her on
Yep.
too. I love her. Love
I love
her.
Wendy's done my show the most. I think she's done it 6 times. Cooper
She's a
Talk.
classy
Um,
broad. I love her.
But yeah, well, we did an hour, and then my guest counselor said we did 2 hours, and I loved her setup. Watching, she became friends with my wife, and
Nice.
so yeah, so I was just getting these people, and then everyone was like, "Oh, Coop's cool. He knows what he's doing. He's not an idiot." And it just, and that's just built. But that's when I got into it. I just did it because it was sounding fun, and I just, for me, it's. I mean, God, I interviewed. I'm a huge Springsteen fan. I've interviewed Steven Van Zandt, Nils Lofgren, David Sanchez, and Mad Dog Lopez. I mean, that's four East Beat Men's. You know, as I said, the '80s.
Yeah.
Gina Shock and Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's. I've been
Oh, Kathy Valentine. I met her at South by Southwest. Loved her. Loved
yeah.
her. Yeah.
I'm scheduled to interview Tom Petty's original drummer, Stan Lynch, next week, a week from Monday. Um, I just it's
You live
fun. I
a
just
good life.
enjoy.
You live a
Well,
good
it's just I meet great people, and the coolest thing is, you know, this I remember I interviewed Gary Kent. He did my show the second time. He's from Spandau Ballet, and he
life.
wrote True and all that.
Oh,
And
such
so I interviewed him before the pandemic, and I said, you know, if you're ever in Philly, I'd love to see it. And he was playing with Nick Mason, who is Floyd's original drummer.
great.
He goes, "Oh, we're going to be at the Met, which is a cool place in Philly." So I get my buddy, and I go, "Hey, man, let's go. We're going to the concert." Really? Okay. He goes, "Where are we sitting?" I said, "Don't worry." So we get there and they give you the backstage passes and all that. We have perfect seats. And after we're going up the elevator, and my buddy, you know, he's never been backstage. I've been backstage a lot because from getting guests, you get comped a lot. You go to
Yeah.
the shows.
Yeah.
And we get off the elevator and there's Nick Mason with a bottle of wine. My buddy's like, "Oh my God." And then Gary showed up and talked. But yeah, that's the thing I love is like these guys, you get to know them. I mean, some of these actors, you know, I'm friends with. I mean, Patrick Fabian was on Better Call Saul.
Yeah. He's
You
a
know, I
great
had
guy.
yeah, and I had him after the second season of Better Call Saul. No one gave a shit about him. And
Wow.
then, you know, then this by the fifth season, remember I just sent him a message on Facebook and I said, I was gonna text you, Patrick, but I haven't talked to you in like 5 years, and I feel weird doing that. And he goes, "Coop, text away." So he did it. And then once the season series ended, he did it again. And I just became
Oh,
friendly with these guys. You know them, and you know they know you, and
you don't treat him like jerks. You treat him like real
you're
people.
spending an hour with them. You know,
Yeah.
and when it was in studio, when you spend an hour with someone face to face in studio, I mean, there's an actor named Eric Palladino who's very good. He was in ER for a while, and he's going to be in a new season of Godfather Harlem. He was in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He
I
was
was
one of the
gonna
two.
say now I know that. Yeah, I knew exactly who you're
He was
talking
the
about.
one thug that would always kidnap her.
Yeah.
Well, I was in Burbank walking back from a happy hour, and I had a little buzz going, and I was late, and my wife was making chili, and I said, "You want me to stop and get onion rings?" So I stopped at Foster Freeze on the corner of uh, Glen Oaks and Verdugo. No, it was Glen Oaks and San Fernando.
Uh-huh.
And I see him with these two kids running around. I'm like, "Man, you look really familiar." So we start talking. I told him about my show. And I go, "Yeah, you know, David Marciano's been on, Spencer Garrett." He goes, "I know all those guys. I'll do a show." And I always laugh. I got a guest who was with his kids at Foster Freeze, and I stopped to get onion rings. And that's how I ended up getting the guest, just because he
Oh,
looked familiar. And as you know, in LA, people, I always say
everybody.
when I moved back here, when you go out and you see someone, it's not them. But when you go out in LA, it's usually them.
Everybody's
Like
them.
you
Yeah.
you're like, that guy looks like Stephen Bauer. I met Stephen Bauer from Scarface, and years ago, and I was like, I set up a drink, and it was just because I'm like, that's not, and it's just cool. But so I've got guests
That's how
that
I
way,
met
but
Jamie
it's
Lee Curtis. I hated driving. I worked in the motion picture industry for like an hour and a half, like everybody else in LA. And I would drive my car down the 405, which meant it would stop your car in the 405 and wait for the next car to move, and you would stop and wait for the next car to move. So I would blow bubbles out my window, and there was a Jeep next to me, and there was somebody else blowing bubbles. And I'd never seen anybody else blow bubbles on the 405. So we're blowing bubbles back and forth on the 405, and I'm pulling off in Sepulveda to go to Sherman Oaks, where I was living at the time. And I look over, it's freaking Jamie Lee Curtis. And she sees me 2 weeks later. We're both blowing bubbles again at each other. It was the best time.
that's LA. It's like I had a young actor named Grant Harvey. He's been in a bunch of stuff, and someone recommended him. He did my show, and I swear that's it. That happened. You know, a year later, I'm at the building where I live at the mailbox, and he's like, "Hey, I did your podcast." He had moved into the building, and it was
Nice.
just so
Out of the
random. You know, that's the thing. Like
neighborhood.
you're like, I'm like, "Oh my God, that's weird. You live down here." Then he talked about he had this show coming out with Steve's on. It was for a season. But no, I only got like 13 episodes. It was very good, but didn't get picked up. But it was just weird. Like, you know, you see these people in random places.
And there's so many people that are doing stuff right now between I mean, everybody's doing a podcast, everybody's doing a TV show, everybody's doing the tickety tockety. One of these days I'll learn how to do one of the dancing things, but
Right.
there's things I don't want to flap, so that I'm not
Right.
gonna. So not at my age. I am a flotation device, but there's so many people that I don't I feel old when I say this. I don't recognize some of the youngsters. Like,
Well, you know
feel
what
bad.
also it's so weird also is a guilty pleasure me and my wife have. If we're up at midnight, we watch reruns of Cold Case, that TV show.
Yeah.
Now, I've had Danny Pino on, and I've had Jeremy Ratchford both on. And as I always laugh, one night I was watching a marathon, and Robert Romanus, who was Damone in Fast Times at Ridgemont High,
Mhm.
killed someone in an episode. And then Reed Diamond, who I've accused on my show a bunch of times, but confronts with, he killed someone in the next episode. I'm like, oh my God, why am I past guys killing people? But I was watching it the other night, and you see the guest stars, and that's how hard it is to make it in Hollywood because
Yeah.
these are people, and I guess Cold Case is 20 years ago now, maybe I don't even know,
Oh, it's been
but
ages. Yeah.
these are people, they were like the lead. I mean, not the stars themselves, but like the guest stars were the lead guest stars, and then you never saw them again. And
Right.
that's what people don't get it. That's how hard Hollywood is. And now there's a new group that comes in, and it's very weird. Like you said, there's young people you don't recognize, and
I
you're
feel
like,
so bad when I don't recognize them.
yeah. I'm like,
I
but I'm
know
like,
you're somebody I had no idea.
but I don't. My wife watches a ton of episodic TV. I really don't. She watches it all. Our DVR is so filled. I'm like, holy.
I
I'm
live
like,
on the
yeah, like
YouTube and I live on the Tubi.
she just well, I told her, I said, you're paying cable. I don't care what it costs because I would whittle stuff down. She goes, that's her guilty pleasure. She
Good for
she
her.
loves her TV, and
Good for her.
I'm like, you'll see like she'll have like 6 shows. But then what stinks is when I want to watch a show, like we're watching White Lotus, but then it's like, well, I have to wait till she's all caught up on her other shows. And then I one show I Mind Hunter. I remember I said, let's watch Mind Hunter. She said, okay. We never started it. And like 2 months later, I come home, she's watching Mind Hunter. I'm like,
Ah,
you
it's just
watched
wait,
the
I was
movie.
watching
Yeah.
that.
So I find shows and I stop asking, do you want to watch that? I did though. I'll tell you a show that was really good is with Kate Hudson called Running Point on
I love her.
Netflix. And it's based like on Jeannie Buss a little bit, like the owner of the Lakers. But I started watching it. I loved it. I told my wife. She came in when I was watching it. She watched it and she was cracking up. So now she watched it. But
So now it's her show.
that was I started watching it
We
because
have
I didn't know what to
TV
pick.
in every room, which is bad. But we're from the generation
What?
where TV in every single room.
Well, we never had kids. We live in a 1 bedroom
Neither did
condo.
we. Yeah,
We have a TV in the bedroom. We have a TV in the living room. We have a TV in the kitchen.
we
I mean,
too.
I do all the cooking. I never watch the TV in the kitchen. I don't, but she does. In the morning, I hear, she always gets her yogurt and her fruit and has coffee and tea
Uh,
or juice. And she puts the TV on there. And it's so funny because it's like we have 3 TVs in a small place. And it's just, and
we're
then
from that
we have,
generation. That is,
yeah. And then
yeah.
we have two Alexas, two of those Echoes. And then we have what? 3 laptops, 2 tablets, 1 desktop. We have so much stuff, and it's like we wonder why our internet's slow because it's
It's
always on.
like I
There's
forgot
always
to
an
have kids, so I got toys.
exactly. That's the
Yeah.
best way to do it.
My husband watches nothing but sports.
Okay, well, I
Everything.
watch sports, but
Oh, well, his dad was a coach at University of Michigan volleyball,
okay,
and
all
just
right.
genius guy. He's actually going to be in the show in a little while, but we already recorded. He's a brilliant guy. But he is all about the college football, colleges, college. So every room has a different sound. Like I do the K dramas and the K pops, and so I know all the Korean actors, and he's got all the sports guys and the dogs. They watch their little, dog TV from Animal Planet.
Hey,
They have the best time.
that's good. That's the way to do it.
Now, if you were gonna um, have one of these youngsters that we're talking about, these new people that are starting out, one of the ways a lot of these people get famous is they're YouTubers. Like Emma Stone started off as a YouTuber. What would you tell them if they were starting out?
I don't know. I'll be honest, and this is the God's honest truth. I have my niche, and I don't want to sound like I wouldn't have a young actor show because I have nothing in common with them.
Right.
And I mean, I did the youngest actor I had, and she was in she was she was just in a new Dynasty. Her name's Liz Gillis,
Mhm.
and she was in a Nickelodeon show with Ariana Grande years
Uh-huh.
ago. And the only reason I had her on was you mentioned Dennis Leary. There was a show called Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll,
Yes.
and Dennis started it.
Yes.
And a guy named John Ailes played his bassist. I hit him up on Facebook. He came on the show, and then
Nice.
he got me Elaine Hendricks, who was on the show. And he said, "You should get Liz Gillis." I said, "Dude, she's like 24.
What do we have in
You're
common? What do I
coming.
talk about?
And he goes, Coop, Coop, she's an old soul. She's an old soul. And she was great, but for these younger people, that's what makes my show special to me. I need to know. I mean, now given I booked Joe Satriani.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't know a lot about his work, to be honest, but I have friends who are guitar players who love him, and no one was getting the chance to book him, and then I booked him, and I knew, but Surfing with the Aliens. That's like all I knew. That's like that song. But I know he gave Steve Vai guitar lessons, and very
Yeah.
interesting guy. And people that listen to that show, some people told me like, that was so informative. And like one guy whose son's a musician, he said he had to listen to it because Joe, we were just talking. He was talking about sucked when he started. He playing in front of kindergartners. Because I did gigs in front of kindergartners. I was like riling cats, and so yeah, that's the thing. Like, but I knew of him, and I knew he was a creator. But for young people, I wouldn't know what to talk to them about. I don't, it's a different world, and it's a matter of I like to talk to actors. Like a lot of the actors I talk to who did go to school for acting, they're trained theaters. They've done, Steven Weber was telling me about when
Oh,
he was
sorry.
on Broadway.
Earthquake. Sorry.
He was a dog. And, but no, it's I don't know. I really don't know what to tell them because I don't consider myself in the biz. I just interview people. I chill. I run my own. I do my own stuff here. I have a few different things going on, but I don't know the biz, and the biz has changed. You talk to the actors who've been around forever. They're getting screwed by residuals. Like they said, it used to be before all the streaming, you would have summer reruns, and so that they would get a chunk of money because we had to watch.
Tom
Sometimes we watched
Wells
them.
survived on Gilligan's Island for 30 years.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it was the way it is, and so I don't know. I wouldn't be good with them. I don't know. I would just say, well,
I play video
just stick.
games. So I think
What's
that's
that?
why when I play video games, I get sucked into a lot of the younger group people.
I never. I mean, last time I played a video game was like Pong. I think it
Ah,
was Pong. I mean, I don't play them. I have a Wii I never used. I did use electronic football though, that
that's
little one.
that's
And
that's
my
my
mom
husband
would hear
puts
that in
those
her
little things
sleep.
together. That's great.
She would go crazy. That's all she would hear.
um, uh, I'm trying to think of what else I could ask you that because you are the most one of the most fascinating people I've met in such a long time. I gotta say, I'm
Well,
so
thank you.
so happy, and I'm a huge fan of
Oh,
all the musicians and things that you were talking about too.
I will. I'll make myself even more fascinating for you.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
See these hands?
Yes.
NCIS, boom, Westworld. I was a hand model on both those shows. I got cast on
You
NCIS.
have nice
I,
hands.
yeah, they were good. They're good. I filled in for a guy who was the guest star, and I forget his name. I didn't meet him, and I guess they brought me in because it was a lot cheaper to bring me in for one day than guest star. And I sat with the second unit, and I sat on a little Apple box, whatever they call them.
Uh,
And I was like this in my hands. I pushed the button underneath, one hand and two hands. And then we watched an NCIS, and like my hands are on there. And then on Westworld, it was a scene for this guy who worked in the lab. And I guess Sandy Newton was a star. So they got someone who had her build because they're
oh
only
yeah,
showing her arm.
the body doubles. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was just because they figured I could fit in this weird plastic outfit, the property. And she had a scalpel going up like this. And I went like this with my hands. And then on the Ellen DeGeneres Ellen show, I played Matt Lauer's forehead. It's before him and her before he got in all his trouble. They had those pranks they play. So I laid like this, and I in front of the green, and I acted like I was snoring, and that was the whole thing. Like I fell asleep doing the news, and then another time on her show, that was they called me back for that because I was on Ellen. It was when Taylor Swift said she had a squad or whatever, or her posse, and Ellen's like, "Oh, I got my squad or my posse," and like Isaac from the Love Boat was on, and Carrot Top, and the two girls from Fuller House,
I
Vanessa Gomez, a Tina Turner impersonator that people thought it was her, but I'm like, this lady's Filipino, Tina Turner's black. Like, can't you tell the
can
difference?
you feel the difference? Hello, white.
And then she introduced us. She goes, Huey Lewis? Well, I have the news. And they dressed us up like the news. And I swear to God, they had this picture of like the guys at this concert, like a promo picture, and they dressed me like gave me different glasses. They were like blue tint. they put a watch on me. They put all black on me. It was amazing. So yeah, so there you go. There's four things you never
Everybody's
thought.
going to show his story. I trade rats for TV movies. I totally get
Yeah,
that.
there you go. See, now you
Yeah,
never knew. Like people, I was a hand model. Yeah, there
that's
you go.
so cool.
Yeah,
Everybody's got something cool. Everybody's got a real good story if you just listen to them.
yeah. I mean, everyone. I always said, even the business world. I tell people, everyone's got a story, especially now because so many people are reinventing themselves and they're becoming. There's so many entrepreneurs. Some of them, I think, like my paper boy is like an entrepreneur. Like that, get out, But it's they everyone has a story, and that's the thing. People don't take the time, and some are going to be great stories, and some are going to suck. But
Yeah.
but to them, they don't suck. That's the thing. Like,
It's
some
about
people,
important words to their voice. Their voice.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that
it
and
matters.
that's important.
Yeah. Everybody matters. You just got to give them time to let them be heard. I think that's the whole point of living, really. You
Yeah, and I love hearing stories. I host a big networking event called Cocktails with Cooper, and I
know?
get like 65 or 75 people, and they show up, and I get people I don't even know, and it's so funny because I always say hi to them. But
Uh,
being in business, you meet those jerks. I had one event. People come in. I'm going, hey, I'm Steve. I don't say everyone knows me as Cooper, but I'm not gonna. And so I remember this one guy's like, oh yeah, he sort of like blew me off. Like, oh yeah, how you doing? And then an hour later, he comes up, oh, I didn't know you were Coop. I'm like, oh, like
well, I
but
didn't know
yeah,
you were the
yeah,
Coop.
exactly. Everybody though, you talk to them, they have stories, and then you find out. And I find out how they found out. Oh, such and such told me. Your mind were here. I'm like, no, everyone, But you get to start talking to some of these people, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool, And then you find all different things out,
Yeah.
and then there's some people you find that you thought are cool, and then you see their Facebook post and you go, this person's an ass,
Yeah.
and then you're like, they have really opinion. I don't get political at all on
Well, do you
Facebook.
remember Ruth Buzzy?
Oh yeah, I've
Yeah,
coached Ruth Buzzy. Yeah.
Ruth and I went back for years. I've known her for decades, and that she got married to a fella who I do not get along with at all. And when she passed, I didn't even have the heart to go to the funeral because I just couldn't stand being around him. So I was like, I'm
It
sorry you're
happens.
grieving. Yeah.
I remember Ruth Buzzy, man. God, that's yeah, oh yeah, laughing
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the old lady with the purse.
That's right.
God, yeah,
We, we used to run into
I,
each other at the antique store in Orange,
that's cool.
California. Yeah, we used to talk about our
That's
touching noses and chins. That's
but see, I've been running. I run into people at the supermarket now, which I like because I do all the shopping. So I love the shopping cook, but I always run into people. I used to tell people, you gotta go to the store, and then they're like, yo, I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And so it's good to see people, at the supermarket.
yeah. Like, I was dating a fellow who worked at a coffee shop, and you get to know these people as like these incredible souls just telling you stories. And I did not know that one of them was a very famous sci-fi writer. Holland, now my last name, my brain just shut off. But this very famous sci-fi writer was sitting next to me for 2 years. I had no idea, but he was just the
Well,
old
that's
guy.
what they like though. When you don't because
Story.
you don't bother them and they like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I had no idea. He was great. I just love these people. And Mimi Van Dor was another one. Mimi Van
Oh
Dor.
wow.
Yeah, she lived two houses down from this coffee shop, but she would come in with her makeup all did, and she was in, I don't know, it had to be in her late
Where
70s.
was it at?
It's Newport Beach, California.
Okay, 'cause there used to be a Priscilla's in Toluca Lake that used to be a cool coffee shop.
Ah, yeah, there's so many great spots that you see, and you just go, oh, I wish that was still around. Like,
I'm sure I haven't been back to LA since I moved. I've been back there in 7 years, and
it's longer for me because I stopped in Vegas for 12, and then I moved.
I'm like, I have no plans to go back. So
Yeah, I don't think I can handle it anymore. But it's so
I
expensive
like
in
I
California.
like New Jersey. It's where I was born. It's my home.
It's
It's
not,
so
and
it's
you've got the
I was
accent,
just
you fit right in.
I
Isn't
was gone for 25 years, 26 years. Really.
that
But
amazing?
yeah.
When you get drawn now, this is the one question about Philly I have to ask. I'm going to ask it. Which cheesesteak is better?
Well, Jim's on South is the best
Okay, see, it's got to be
in
one of those
Philly.
hot Geno's.
Pat's and Geno's, no, they're not. Jim's is good. Tony Luke's is really good. But the thing with Tony Luke's is I know Tony Luke Jr. He did my podcast twice, and he's a big celebrity around here. But his dad owned the other Tony Luke's. They'd have falling out.
Oh,
His dad would get mad when people would come in looking for Tony Luke, and he'd pop up and be like, no, you're not Tony Luke. They're looking for the son because he was on TV. Well, then his dad and his brother got arrested they lost the store. They're in jail on
oh,
tax evasion. But then poor Tony Luke Jr., everyone thought it was him. Because someone says,
Oh,
"Oh, I didn't know your buddy was a criminal." I go, "It's not him." But they have a great cheesesteak. But they also there's a sandwich that goes under the radar in Philadelphia that if you're from Philadelphia, you know, and you can get a good cheesesteak or this sandwich at John's Roast Pork.
okay.
It's a hot pork sandwich with pecorino cheese and broccoli rabe,
Nice.
and it's one of those things. It's and the Knicks became very famous. It was on Man vs. Food on the Knicks. Actually, remember Man vs. Food, that show
Oh,
where
man
Adam
versus
Russell he
fruit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The guy that eats
well
everything. Yeah.
yeah, well, Tony Luke, they were on there because he just made up that they had a 3 pound cheesesteak because he told me because they didn't, but they wanted to be on the show. But there was this
For
place
him.
called The Nick that had this roast pork sandwich. And I swear to God, me and my wife were in the Reading Terminal, which is this cool food, all these food places in Philly. It's like in the middle of Center City, it's like 11th and Arch.
Cool.
And because it was on, there was like some teachers convention in, and because the Knicks had been on Man vs. Food, like the line was so far out. But that's a sandwich that people really like too. I mean, we always do talk about the cheesesteak, and I love sandwiches. Like we were in Chicago, I had the hot beef. The hot beef rivals the cheesesteak. I have no problem saying that. You know, people might say, "Oh, you're so
Nobody's
low." Like,
gonna
no,
yell at you. Yeah, no, no.
the
I
hot
my
beef's
favorite
good.
cheesesteaks out of
It,
a trailer in Boston over by
it,
the the red light district. It was this my favorite cheesesteak in the world.
if you ever go to Philly, go to Jim's on South Street. It burnt down and they rebuilt it.
Cool.
So, however, I was at a concert with Enough's Enough and the Bullet Boys and Jack Russell and Chip Enough had comped me, and I'm a good friend of mine. We went to Jim's after, and I lost all respect for him
Uh-oh.
because he put mustard on his cheesesteak. I'd never seen that. Now I will put ketchup on it. My dad put ketchup on it. I'll put ketchup. That's a thing. But I was like, I looked at him, I go, what the hell? He's like, oh, I like mustard. Yeah, so I was like,
It's not about
but
your mustard,
Jim's,
it's about the cheesesteak.
Jim's, and then there's Steve's. And the thing is, I always tell people, you're going to get a good cheesesteak wherever you go in Philly. They're going to be good. It's like if you go to Buffalo, the wings are good because it's the area. You know, you go to New York, you're going to get
Beef
good
on
pizza,
weck in
good big.
Buffalo too, which people don't
What's
even know.
that?
Beef on weck, which I learned
Oh
about.
yeah, I found out I have in-laws in Buffalo, and there's an actor named William Sadler. He
Yes.
was in Shawshank Redemption, and he played Death on Ted and Bill.
Yes. He's one of my favorite actors of all time.
He's from Buffalo, and I asked him when he was on my show. I was talking about food, and he told me about the beef and weck, and I had messaged my friend who's from Buffalo. I go, man, you ever heard beef and weck? He goes, yeah. So I had one. We went to Buffalo last summer. It was good.
Yeah,
So,
my ex husband was the jazz pianist for Penn and Teller, and
okay,
we would go to Buffalo where his dad was from, and that's where I learned about those things.
well, there you go.
Like it's a thing I never knew. It's so
Yeah,
yum. So, life is not happiness unless you talk about food. I think because
no,
that's the
true. That's
Italian in
true.
me. True. So, well, Coop, I tell you what, I've dragged you in here for about an hour. I really love talking with you. I think you're a awesome, awesome individual, and I really want to talk
Thank
to you
you.
again
And
sometime.
as for you, I'm very glad you brought me on. It's funny. I'm not. I usually okay. I do CooperTalk, which I can find at CooperTalk.net. I
Yeah,
do that
and we'll have a
whenever
link
I
to
get it.
that on the website, so everybody
Okay,
has.
but whenever I get a guest, I don't like when I book them when I can if I have the time. I do Coop's Comedy Corner usually on Tuesday nights, and that's out of a company called Comedy Trainwreck out of Philly. And then the Coop Tank is my pod, the one they're both on YouTube. We're the roundtable of business people. But this week I'm not recording uh, either of them, so I had no recordings this week, and so I'm glad you had me come on because
Oh,
I need to do something. I mean,
keep the chops
I'm
going.
not used to it. I'm used to recording, some 3 different shows a week, and but
Good.
there's gonna be none this week, and but now I did this, so I got to be a guest, so that's
I
good.
just did you ever have Tears for Fears?
No, I got turned down by their they weren't doing interviews right now. They're the one guest I really want though, and his PR person was sort of rude to me, but
Curtis
I
is so
want
sweet.
no,
Oh,
but I want Rick Springfield
oh, Rick, of course, because you
because
were
at the
him.
but I'll tell you the thing is I'm going to tweet at him because he's going on tour this summer with him, Paul Young, has been on my show, John Waite's been on my show, John Cafferty's been on my show, Lang Chung, Jack's been on twice, the other guy's been on once. So I'm
Nice.
like, I'm going to say this: everyone's been on my show except you. You got to do my show.
That's
But his
right.
PR person's like, well, I get a lot of requests. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But
Well, not
you know,
friend
I
request.
learned I learned in the early days when I started doing this. you can't get bummed out if you don't get a guest. If someone else gets a guest, good for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't complain. I honestly, for being a no name, I'm not like a Dax Shepard or Joe Rogan or Mark Maron, but I honestly, and this is not me being, arrogant, but I can honestly say I don't know of another podcast who's had my level of guests that's an independent podcast and is not a household name because I'm
I
surprised.
aspire to be you. I
Yeah,
absolutely do.
well, just you'll get great guests. The thing is, I
I
always tell people,
think that's no
you
problem.
just
That's
I'm
right.
going to tell you a quick. I'm going to tell you a quick guest story.
Good.
So I had a guy named James Dumont on. Very nice guy, character actor. He was actually in Righteous Gemstones. He played, and his son's in it too. And I hit him up. I hit him up on Facebook. He said, "Get in touch with my PR guy." So I get in touch with his PR guy, and the guy comes down and sits in studio with us. Again, he loved what I did. I messaged him. I said, "Who are your other clients?" And one of them was Ed Asner. So I just said, "What the hell?" So I said, "Hey, can I get Ed Asner?" Week later, Ed Asner's in studio, and he's sitting there, and he was lead as he was coming in. Sharon Lawrence was leaving, and he goes, and they know each other, and
Oh,
he goes, he sits down, and goes three mics. Which one did Sharon sit at? And I go, that one. He fakes like he's kissing it, and he was
oh.
just so good. But he like this stodgy old man with his pants pulled up. And at the end, we took a picture, and he goes, "Wipe that smug effing look off your face, smile off your face," joking around. But that was one of those things where I said, you know what? I threw it out there, and I got him. Steven Van Zandt, same thing.
Oh,
But then some people you chase, you chasing. You go, what the hell? Why am I even chasing this person? After a while, you're
yeah.
like, But hey, I always tell people, don't can't get frustrated. There are so many guests out there.
Yeah.
And
Some of
I'm starting to do repeats. Like I just had Raphael Zabar's back on, and
nice.
because he has some stuff going on because they haven't done my show for like 9 years, but they remember me. We're friends on Facebook. We're someone 7 years, and so yeah, so I'm just doing some repeats now too, and
That's so
it's always good.
cool.
And I love to see what guys whose careers have really blown up after my show, like the guy who was in this the Big Bang spinoff that was a real popular hit.
Oh,
Um,
Sussman. What he's the
no, it was the one. It was Young Sheldon, the show Young
oh, the Young
Sheldon.
Sheldon one. Yes. Kevin
The
Sussman
father,
still
the
next.
father, Lance Barber was on my show,
Oh,
and
wow.
I had him right before that show took off, but he had gotten turned down uh, for Mike and Molly. It came down to him and another woman
Oh,
and Billy Gardell, but they wanted to know if they wanted to go heavy or chubby, and they decided to go heavy. That's why he didn't get the
wow.
role.
Isn't
But
it amazing?
then he turns around and he ends up getting Young Sheldon, which runs forever. It's in syndication. So that's the thing. I love it though when I see these people get, I know, I mean, Nate Bargatze is the biggest stand up in the country right now. Nate
Yeah.
Bargatze did my show 11 years ago. No one really knew who he was. I
Right?
saw an article about him. I sent him a message. He came into the studio.
That's
Nicest guy. And
oh,
now he just blew up. Rory Scovel, the same thing. I would just, I should have been a talent manager. I'm telling you, I pick people out, but I always love it because I'm like, this guy did my show. This guy did my, and that's what I always like. And the one thing I can never drive, there will never be a day if I have my radio on in a car or if I'm watching TV that there will not be at least one person who's been on my show, whether it was a TV writer or a actor or a musician, because that's how many people have been on my shows and how many writers I've had. And that's pretty cool. Like I was driving down the street the other day and three bands in a row where people were on my show. I'm like, cool, that's good. So
I don't know. I
exactly, it's what's
don't
good. So
my goal, I'm gonna get the I won't even jinx it. I'm not even gonna say, but I'm gonna get them.
you will just keep doing it. It's all it's I just have a good query letter. I was telling me have a good query letter. Be very professional, and you always say,
Please and
I appreciate what you're doing. I don't
yeah,
like the term I appreciate you. I appreciate your help or whatever. I appreciate you
the work you
setting this
do and how you do
because
it.
then they go, okay, this person's cool. Because some people just write stuff like, oh, I want this guest.
And
But
it just sounds like an AI letter. I don't
exactly. I'm anti-AI. So
uh
anyway,
you can get me on that for 2 hours, but yeah. As a voice actor, you can get me on that.
oh yeah. So,
Well, Mr. Cooper, not Steve Cooper. We will call you Coop from now on and not Steve. That is the old man's name, I guess. I don't know. I don't know why.
yes, I like as everyone calls me Coop.
Good name. Yeah, Coop's a good name. I like that name. Now I have a friend whose dog is named Coop. It's a
I
good.
have a lot. I know a lot of people with dogs' name. It's a big dog name now. It's
Yeah,
great.
it's a
But
great.
my career is dogs. So it's all good.
Dogs are rock stars. They're a worse
Exactly.
thing to have.
Exactly.
This has been the anti-social hour-ish, and we have had a lovely chat with Cooper, Mr. Steve Cooper. Thank you so much. And
Thank you. I really appreciate it.